All right, everybody, and welcome back. Here we are at episode number 4 of the podcast. 5 if you count the pilot, but I don't count the pilot because that was just a little bit of an intro. Got a couple new subs this week, and we're going to keep building on this thing, keep working on this thing. So, right now, the 4 o'clock games are getting towards halftime. So, I'm going to comment in depth tomorrow about the Bills' victory over the Raiders. And also just it's kind of a crazy day in football today. It's the day that as a fan you really enjoy. I think when the fourth quarter started for most games, it was a one score game. For almost all of the 1 o'clock games, who knew that Kansas City and Jacksonville would be a low scoring game? But we're going to comment on Buffalo for the most part, talk about what they did well, and obviously they played the Raiders. It's week 2. I don't look too much into it, but you have to give a lot of credit where a lot of credit's due, and Buffalo is going to hear a lot of good things about their performance. So as that goes on, we'll probably have another podcast put out in 2 days, which is Tuesday. For now, what I want to do is talk about the UFC last night. Shevchenko and Grasso had their rematch, and Holland fought Jack Della Maddalena. So for the main event, which it was kind of a toss-up. I thought that Shevchenko should have won the first fight. I thought that she took Grasso lightly and was probably surprised in some positions. And I think you could see that play out a little bit last night. I'll get the elephant out of the room. I think Shevchenko won the fight. I think it was 3-2. I think that she cost herself the fight by going for the head and arm throw in the middle of the fifth. But I don't think it's fair to give that a 10-8 round. The round that Valentina got dropped, the second round, she was actually moving backwards when she got hit in a punch that was by a punch that was actually slowing down. So I don't think she was rocked. I think the momentum of her moving backwards and then getting hit with a punch, accelerating her moving backwards faster than her feet could, is what caused that knockdown. And then Valentina recovered and then controlled the rest of the round, and it was a 10-8 round. This was just the opposite. She was picking her apart. One of those jabs stunned Grasso pretty bad, and then Grasso ended up with a nice advantage at the end. I still think Valentina should have won the fight 3-2. But there's some technical things that you could look at from that fight and see why Shevchenko has a lot of trouble with Grasso. Grasso switches to a lefty stance so it doesn't leave the body kick open, and she didn't do that when she first came out within 3 minutes. That's pretty much how she fought the rest of the fight. Valentina kind of only moves straight backwards after her combinations, and that's where Grasso was catching her. I think Grasso might have a little more thud at the end of her punches because hers seemed to kind of do a little bit more damage, where Valentina's was a little more frequent. Her jab was on fire last night. Her jab was winning her the fight. Both ladies have this unique ability to put the other one in a bad position on the ground and keep them there. Both of them had back control. Both of them had mount. And the other one was kind of stuck for the most part. Where sometimes you see people can instantly get up. Grasso scrambled a couple times, but there was times in the fight where she was just stuck with Valentina on her, and vice versa. I noticed when Valentina was on top, she couldn't get a lot of ground and pound off. It looks as though Grasso has a lot of isometric strength, meaning the ability to squeeze and hold, which is why she would just get an overhook and Valentina just couldn't free her hands to be able to come up and land an elbow, land a hammer fist, or even start working a pass. And I think that throws Shevchenko off. I think she's used to being the stronger fighter, except when she had to fight Nunez and maybe Holm. At least at 125, she's probably the stronger fighter, and it was showing last night. But at the end of the day, it was a bullshit call. Valentina should have won, but also I think that Valentina left a little bit to be desired. I know Grasso left a lot to be desired. I think Valentina's jab had an odd timing to it, and Grasso couldn't get settled. She would just sit and wait and think she had a read and then get popped with a jab, and then that kind of resets her. And by the time she thinks she has another read, she's looking, she gets cracked with another one. So I don't think Grasso put on a championship performance, but I don't think that Valentina put on a performance where it was a clear definition that she was the winner. I did pick her, but I have a little bit more technical eyes than the judges do. And from a judge's standpoint, there was a lot of back and forth. There was a couple rounds that were really back and forth. It's a shame it ended up in a draw. I think there was a little politics played behind the scenes on that, and it should have been a Shevchenko victory, but nonetheless, we move on. And the co-main event of the evening, I think Kevin Holland won that fight, and I have never rooted for Kevin Holland ever. I will admit that I'm a little bit of a Kevin Holland hater. I think that he was tall for middleweight, and the fact that he's at welterweight, he has such an advantage with his length. And for coming from a short guy who never was the taller person competing against somebody, I just get jealous of that shit, to be honest. Like, he's 6'3", 6'4", long. He's hard to grapple with because of his length. He probably has a lot of leverage strength, which means he has long forearms, so his ability to push you is a little bit better than somebody who can't extend as far as they do, somebody like me. He's got power on his punches, and he just has an overall like good attitude about fighting. And to me, I look at him as a guy, he should never lose. Like, I thought if Edwards didn't beat Usman, it would be Kevin Holland that would beat Usman, because he can wrestle just enough. He would keep Usman on the outside of him, which Usman is never used to being the guy with less reach. Usman has a very long arms and wide shoulders. I thought Holland was going to do that. And to be honest, at welterweight, I've never thought Holland was going to lose a fight. I thought he was going to kick the shit out of Wonderboy. I thought he was going to beat Chimaev. And I thought he was going to win last night. And I certainly think that he did. Maddalena is just a guy they're trying to push, just like fucking Ian Gary, just like they did with Strickland, just like they did with McGregor. And it's a little bit annoying. I understand the guy has a cool name. I understand he's coming from what's coming up as a hotbed of mixed martial arts. But I think he did so many things from a coaching standpoint that I would have lost my mind in the corner. You're going to walk Holland all the way back to the fence and eat 9 to 12 punches on the way. And you may be eating them off the gloves a little bit like this. Like, hey. But it doesn't matter. Like, he's throwing 9 to 12 punches at you that you're kind of deflecting, but it's still getting you. It's still jolting you a little bit. And then you're going to throw a 2 or 3 punch combo and then back up and let this guy off the fucking fence. Like, you just closed all this distance to be in a position to have some success in your range, and then you back him off. And then you're going to eat 9 to 12 more punches, whether you're blocking them or not, kick here or there, just to get off 2 or 3. And it's very interesting watching all the tweets coming from the fans and the reporters, because some people had a 29-28 Maddalena. Some people had a 30-27 Holland. I thought it was 29-28 Holland. That's just me. And like I said, I'm a Holland hater. I've never rooted for him. And it's out of pure jealousy. And I'm old enough and mature enough to admit that, like, I would kill to have the skill set and the mindset of Kevin Holland. Like, who's in the cage and stops and sniffs the air and then looks at his opponent and goes, "Do you smell weed in here?" Like, that shit's funny. Like, it's almost like he's too relaxed in the cage, but that's the mindset you need. Like, some guys scare themselves out of performing well, and it's like Holland doesn't give a shit. I think he won that fight. I think that I don't understand how he loses fights. And in my mind, if I had his build and his skill set, I would be unstoppable. But maybe there's just things and reads that he gets that he feels like he's not in an advantageous position. Maybe he didn't want to throw a lot of power last night. He was doing a little bit of the Diaz, high volume, lots of distance, minimal power so you don't gas yourself out. And maybe the judges looked at that. I thought it was a clear robbery. I thought Maddalena lost that fight. But also, if you look at Maddalena, he didn't look good in his last fight against that guy. His first name is Basil. I forget what his last name is. And that was a short notice fight. And one of the things they mentioned yesterday was, well, at least Jack Della Maddalena doesn't have to worry about getting taken down in this fight. Like, he likes these fights where he can stand up. Then go be a fucking kickboxer. If you're going to get stylistic matchups so you don't get taken down, so you don't lose, that's bullshit. And real MMA fans don't like that. Put him against the best people. If he's that good, put him against people that are going to test him. Like, is he going to beat Usman by not fighting guys that can wrestle? And Usman is still the number one contender, or number two. Just because he lost to Edwards twice doesn't mean anything. Like, Usman's still really good. So I think that it was a clear robbery. The rest of the card, it was okay. It was nice to see Rojas get a victory. I forget the guy's name, the guy that beat Santos. that fight, that guy took way too much damage for as tall and long as he is. It's something looked off about him. He looks like a guy that can't take a lot of damage, probably because of his frame. But nonetheless, he looked good in his victory as well. So that's it for this episode. Tune in on Tuesday, and we'll talk about what happened with all of the action on Sunday and Monday's football games. And can't wait to see you there. Thanks for being here, everybody.